I pretended to forgive my husband for a year, then did this to him. They say that the most dangerous person in the room is not the one who is screaming or throwing objects in a fit of rage. The most dangerous person is the one who sits quietly, smiling politely, while their heart is turned to ice. There is a terrifying power in silence, and there is a specific kind of patience that is born only from the deepest betrayal. For Ruth, the realization that her perfect life was a lie did not result in a sudden explosion of anger. It resulted in a plan. It resulted in a performance that would last for 365 days. It was a year where she would wake up every morning and kiss the man who destroyed her, all while she slowly and methodically dismantled his entire world from the inside out. The discovery happened on a Tuesday, a day that felt ordinary in every other way. Ruth had been looking for a tax document in her husband Peter's home office. Peter was a man who prided himself on his success, his wealth, and his image as the perfect family man. But in a misfiled folder, Ruth found a second phone. It was not locked. Within minutes, the illusion of their 15-year marriage evaporated. She found messages, photos, and financial transfers. He was not just having an affair. He was building a parallel life with a younger woman, and he was using their joint savings to fund it. The betrayal was total. It was financial, emotional, and physical. Most women in her position would have confronted him the moment he walked through the door. They would have demanded answers. But as Ruth sat there, her hands shaking so violently, she had to place them flat on the mahogany desk to steady them. A cold clarity washed over her. If she left now, in a state of emotion, she would lose. Peter was charming and manipulative. He would hide the money. He would spin the story to their friends. He would leave her with nothing but her dignity. And in that moment, dignity did not feel like enough. She wanted justice. She decided then and there that she would not be the victim in this story. She would be the architect of his downfall. When Peter came home that evening, Ruth did not cry. She asked him about his day. She poured him a glass of wine. She listened as he complained about his business partners. She looked at his face, a face she had loved for nearly 2 decades, and she felt absolutely nothing. It was as if a switch had been flipped in her brain. The man sitting across from her was no longer her husband. He was a target. That night marked the beginning of the most difficult year of her life. She decided she would pretend to be the perfect wife for exactly 1 year. She would wait until their next anniversary to execute her final move. The first few months were a test of her mental endurance. Every time Peter touched her arm or paid her a compliment, Ruth had to suppress a wave of nausea. She had to force a smile onto her face that did not reach her eyes. She played the role of the supportive partner flawlessly. When Peter suggested they invest more money into his company, she agreed enthusiastically. However, she insisted that they update their legal paperwork to protect their assets, claiming it was for tax purposes. Peter, blinded by his own arrogance and the belief that his wife was naive, signed every document she placed in front of him. He did not realize that he was signing away his control over their properties and their shared investments. Spring turned into summer, and the charade continued. They went on a luxury vacation to the coast of Italy. To the outside world, they were the picture of happiness. They posted photos of sunset dinners and boat rides. Their friends commented on how lucky they were. But behind the closed doors of their hotel suite, Ruth lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling while Peter slept soundly beside her. The psychological toll was immense. There were moments when she felt like she was losing her mind. She wondered if she was becoming a monster. Was it normal to be this calculated? Was it healthy to hold on to this much poison without letting it out? But then she would remember the messages on the hidden phone, and her resolve would harden like concrete. During this time, Ruth also began to focus on herself. She told Peter she wanted to get in shape for herself, but in reality, she was building her physical and mental strength for the life she would lead without him. She started therapy, though she never told the therapist the full extent of her plan. She simply said she was preparing for a major life transition. She reconnected with old friends she had neglected. She quietly moved her personal heirlooms into a storage unit. She was building a lifeboat while Peter was busy drilling holes in the ship, completely unaware that she was the one handing him the drill. The most satisfying part of her revenge was not the destruction, but the distraction. She encouraged Peter to take expensive trips with his friends, knowing full well he was with the other woman. She wanted him to feel safe. She wanted him to feel invincible. The more comfortable he became, the more careless he got with his money and his secrets. He started transferring larger sums, thinking Ruth was not paying attention. But she was watching every penny. She was documenting every transaction. She was building a dossier of evidence that would not only guarantee her a divorce settlement, but would also expose his financial improprieties to his business partners. Autumn arrived, bringing with it the final phase of her plan. The tension in the house was palpable, but only to her. Peter was happier than he had been in years. He thought he had the perfect life, a wife who did not ask questions, and a mistress who gave him excitement. He had no idea that the ground beneath his feet had been hollowed out. Ruth began to drop subtle hints that she was planning a huge surprise for their anniversary. Peter assumed it would be a gift, perhaps a new car or a lavish party. He loved being celebrated. He loved being the center of attention. Finally, the day arrived. It was their 16th anniversary. Ruth had arranged a private dinner at their home. She cooked his favorite meal. She wore his favorite dress. The house was filled with candlelight. Peter sat at the head of the table, raising his glass to toast their enduring love. He spoke about trust and partnership. It took every ounce of Ruth's strength not to laugh in his face. When the time came for gifts, Peter handed her a diamond bracelet. It was beautiful, and it was expensive. Ruth accepted it with a gracious nod. Then it was her turn. She placed a heavy, leather-bound box on the table in front of him. Peter smiled, his eyes lighting up with greed and curiosity. He opened the box, expecting a watch or keys to a vacation home. Instead, he found a stack of papers. On top was a divorce petition, already filed. Beneath that were copies of his text messages, printed in high resolution. Beneath those were the bank statements showing his embezzlement of company funds, and the transfer of ownership documents for their house, which was now solely in Ruth's name. The silence that filled the room was heavier than any scream. Ruth watched as the color drained from Peter's face. He looked up at her, waiting for her to shout, to cry, to show some emotion. But she simply took a sip of her wine and looked at him with a calm, detached expression. She explained, in a steady voice, that he had 1 hour to pack a bag and leave her house. She explained that his business partners had already received digital copies of the financial records. She explained that his mistress knew he was bankrupt because she had frozen the accounts that morning. Peter tried to argue. He tried to beg. He tried to get angry. But he quickly realized that he had no leverage. He was a man who had walked into a trap that had been set a year ago. He left the house that night with 2 suitcases and a ruined reputation. Ruth locked the door behind him, blew out the candles, and for the first time in 365 days, she exhaled completely. The house was quiet, but it was not empty. It was filled with the promise of a new beginning. Ruth did not feel triumphant in the way she expected. She did not feel a rush of joy. Instead, she felt a profound sense of peace. She had reclaimed her life. She had refused to be a victim. The year of pretending had been exhausting, but it had taught her something invaluable about her own strength. She learned that she could survive the unimaginable. She learned that patience is a weapon. And she learned that the best revenge is not just making someone pay, but ensuring that you walk away with your future secure. This story reminds us that while betrayal can break our hearts, it does not have to break our spirits. And sometimes, silence is the loudest scream of all. But I want to hear from you. Do you think Ruth was justified in deceiving her husband for a year to secure her future? Or does fighting lies with lies only poison the soul?